Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughn Manor. And we are coming to the end of Garbaugust. Garbaugust, the reading event created by CriminOlly, champion of trashy books. A reading event created by CriminOlly to celebrate books that are considered trash by society. And I'm wondering if perhaps Garbaugust has been the greatest reading event that BookTube has ever seen. It might be. It is certainly, to my mind, the most interesting reading event, not only that I've been a part of, but that I've seen on BookTube. And I've been watching BookTube longer than I've been on it. Most reading events are pretty cut and dry, including the one I created, June on the Range, which was a celebration of Western fiction. I mean, most of us can agree basically on what a Western is. There's not a lot of controversy about that. But Garbaugust is a whole nother thing. It's been a whole nother thing. Where not only is it about the celebration of books that are generally considered trash by society at large, but defining that. What kind of books are those? What kind of books are looked down on, generally? And Steve Donahue's made a bunch of videos about that. He's made a few. CriminOlly's made a video or two about that. For me, it's trashy fiction or garbage or trash books. Those are just books that are considered to be so by society at large because of the kind of books they are. Of course, a book has to be judged on its own merits. It doesn't matter if it's a men's adventure book. It doesn't matter if it's some historical romance. It doesn't matter what kind of book it is. You know, people falling in love with, like, I don't know, were-turtles. That's okay if it's that type of book. It has to be, you have to judge it on the book itself, right? It's either a good or a bad book. Or just an okay book. But you have to judge it on its own merits. There's no kind of book that is just automatically bad because of its category or its genre. So that, to me, is what Garbaugust was about. It was about celebrating those type of books which are looked down on. And indeed, I read a lot of books for this event. I read 11 books this month, which, you know, that's not much that's an afternoon for Steve Donahue or a weekend for CriminOlly. But for me, 11 books is a lot for 1 month. It helps that many of them were short. But it's been interesting because these definitions of trash, even the co-hosts and the people that were taking part in Garbaugust didn't all agree on what that was. And a couple of us never did agree. I saw It Came From the Page the other day, did a great video about what he learned from Garbaugust. He had a rougher Garbaugust than some of us. But he got up in arms because he feels like movie tie-ins and novelizations are not trash. They're not trash. He's a big champion of novelizations and movie tie-ins. But that was the whole point of Garbaugust, to say, no, it's not trash just because it's in this category. You have to judge it on its own merits. So it's been an interesting, in fact, it's been a fascinating reading event. And I'm really happy that CriminOlly not just invented it, but threw himself into it so much and made it such a great event, along with the other great co-hosts, who I'll link them all down below, because you should check out their channels, because, you know, all their channels are amazing. I should talk a little bit about the books that I read for Garbaugust. I've talked about some of these before, so I will go through them rather quickly. The first book I read was The Survivalist by Jerry Ahern, a post-apocalyptic action novel, which is very much It's very much like a cheesy action movie, but it was a good read. It was entertaining, that's for sure. Full of many different weapons and characters doing really unrealistic things in unrealistic situations. But entertaining, man. I really enjoyed The Survivalist Total War, the first volume of the Survivalist series. That was fun, and that was a good way to start off. Then I moved on to Piers Anthony's Bio of a Space Tyrant, Volume 1, Refugee. There are a total of 6 volumes now in Bio of a Space Tyrant, which tells the story of this guy, Hope, who grows up to become a space tyrant. I think he's like the tyrant of Jupiter or something. I haven't got that far. This first volume I was pretty harsh on because it's got some problems. I mean, this book has issues. But it did have its good points. Enough of them that I am going to continue reading the series. I know that might be ill-advised, but I'm going to read the rest of them. Why not? I have to find out what happens. So I will be continuing this and reading more volumes of The Space Tyrant. Call me crazy, but I'm going to. I read the novelization of the film of Solomon Kane, which was written by Ramsey Campbell, based off of the film. Ramsey Campbell, of course, is a very highly respected horror writer who has a history with Solomon Kane. He finished some unfinished Robert E. Howard Solomon Kane stories back in the 70s and did a good job. And this book is really, really good. This is one of the best books that I read for Garbaugust. He did a fantastic job. Stuck pretty close to the film, from what I remember. It's been a few years since I've seen the film. But, expanded on it and just did a great job. So Solomon Kane, the movie novelization, is a really good book. And if you are interested in Ramsey Campbell, this shows a different side of Ramsey Campbell. The action-packed fantasy adventure side of Ramsey Campbell, which, trust me, you don't get a lot of in his other books. So that was cool. I followed that up with John Jakes, historical novelist John Jakes, who wrote Traitor's Legion as J. Scotland, a pseudonym he used back in the 60s for these trashy historical novels. And indeed, this was one. This was fun. I enjoyed this an awful lot. I had a good time with Traitor's Legion. Very entertaining. It is very much like a sword and sandals epic, like those old Italian sword and sandals movies with the bad dubbing. This is a lot like that. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Many historical inaccuracies and things like that, but that's okay. That's okay. You expect that kind of thing when you read a book called Traitor's Legion. That was fun, though. The next book I read was really, really good, though, and that is Nightwing by Martin Cruz Smith. Nightwing, which is a killer animal book, which according to the rules invented by CriminOlly, if you're a criminal animal book, you're automatically a trashy book, which doesn't really work in real life because Moby Dick is not a trashy book, and that's about a killer animal. In fact, I'm not even convinced Jaws. Is Jaws considered a trashy book? I don't know. Maybe, but Nightwing is fantastic. This is a really good horror novel. It's interesting because Nightwing is a animal attacks book. And it has all the characters and types of characters and things you expect in an animals attacks book. It's got the hero. It's got the scientist dedicated to the eradication of, the killer animal. It's got the heroine. And of course, the hero is a character nobody believes, So it's got all that stuff. But the way it does it is really interesting because it takes all of those tropes and just uses them in a very unexpected way. The hero of this book, for example, is not really what we would normally consider a hero. He's a real person, a three-dimensional real person. And the scientist is really different. And the heroine, Normally in these types of books, they're there to be rescued. Not this one. She's pretty tough. So he takes these tropes and in their positions, he puts real characters, three-dimensional characters. And the way he does it with the actual scenes of horror is great. This is just an excellent book. Nightwing. You should read this book. You should not read this next book, though. This I also read for Book Trek. Vulcan by Kathleen Sky. This was terrible. This is just, it's terrible. None of the characters act like the characters as you would see them in the Star Trek television show. It's got a fantastic cover, though. Look at that cover. That cover is fantastic. The book, crap. So there was that. This was the worst book I read for Garbaugust. It's the only really bad book that I read for Garbaugust. So I'm doing better than a lot of my co-hosts, actually, when it comes to Garbaugust. I picked some winners. Mazza of the Moon, which also was the first book in my vintage science fiction project, also counts as a trashy book because Otis Adelbert Klein wrote this book. This book was written in, was it 1930? It was either 30, I think it was 30. Let me see. Yeah, it was written in 1930, and you can tell has some unfortunate racial stereotypes in this. Very unfortunate. But the book itself was entertaining. Fast-paced, entertaining interplanetary adventure, which is kind of like Edgar Rice Burroughs in a way. It's got a great cover by Frazetta, a very old Frazetta, early Frazetta cover. So it's kind of like Burroughs in a way, but really, he did his own thing with this. It's got a lot of differences as well. It's not just like a ripoff. So it was a fun, pulpy adventure, science fiction adventure, Mazza of the Moon. That was cool, about the war between Earth and the Moon. We have a big war in this one. Moved on to a book that also had more unfortunate racial stereotypes. Actually, I might have read this one first. I lose track of what I read when. But this is The Thousand-Headed Man by Doc Savage. Lester Dent's novel, The Thousand-Headed Man, which he wrote under the house name of Kenneth Robeson. Doc Savage was a very popular pulp adventure character. He had his own pulp magazine. And in the 60s and 70s, all those adventures were reprinted in paperback with these cool new covers. And this was the second volume in the reprint series. Again, unfortunate racial stereotypes, but a good Doc Savage adventure. It's a fun Doc Savage adventure if you can get past the, unsavory stuff in this book. But as a pulp adventure, as a Doc Savage pulp adventure, it was fun. It was pretty good. Not the best one that I've read, but pretty good. So, yeah, there's that. Then I moved on to two novelizations. Much like It Came from the Page, I enjoy movie novelizations when they're good, and nobody writes them better than Alan Dean Foster, the king of movie novelizations. Alan Dean Foster, a science fiction writer who also writes movie novelizations, he'll novelize anything, man. You just, do this. He'll say, okay, fine, I'll do it. No matter what it is, I don't know if he ever said no to a job. I'm sure he has, but he's novelized everything, this guy. And so I read two novelizations from Alan Dean Foster, and they were both excellent. The first one was this one, Clash of the Titans, a novel by Alan Dean Foster based on this very fun and cheesy film. It's been years since I saw this movie. I mean, years. Probably well over a decade since I've seen Clash of the Titans. So I didn't remember it super well when I read the book, but the book is really entertaining. It's a very entertaining book. I had fun with Clash of the Titans. It was cool. But the next one was really good. This is The Thing, which was written by Alan Dean Foster. Interestingly, on the cover it says based on a screenplay by Bill Lancaster, but inside it says a novel by Alan Dean Foster based on the story by John W. Campbell. So I wonder if this was one of those movie novelizations that came out before the film that was pretending not to be a novelization of the movie. There were a few of those, and this might have originally been one of them, but it does fess up to being a movie novelization on the cover. Although this was the earlier edition, there was a later edition that had a still from the film poster on it. This is just a really cool cover. And it came from the page, who I've mentioned a few times in this video, actually sent me this copy because he could find all the cool books. He finds all the cool books. I've been looking for this. I looked for this forever and couldn't find it until he sent it to me. So thanks. That was awesome. And this book is really good. This book is really good. It's interesting because it has some of those differences that were probably in the original script, but they changed for the film. A lot of the scenes with the Thing are different in this than they are in the film. Some of the scenes in here are really effective, though. And there was this whole action scene that was not in the movie, probably due to budget constraints, I'm assuming. But there were quite a few differences between this and the final film. And so that made this interesting. The characters were all a little different too, and so that was fun. And Alan Dean Foster, he just does such a good job writing these books so that they work perfectly well as books. You need never have seen this movie to enjoy this book. You know, you get the whole story here and more. So, you know, he does exactly what you want him to do with this kind of thing. And it was a fun read. I really enjoyed this. This is one of the best things I read. Last thing I read was pretty great, though. And that was Brian Lumley's Necroscope 3, The Source. The Source. This is the craziest series. This is the third in the Necroscope series, which I forget how many books are total in the series. Maybe 15 or something crazy like that. I'm not sure. I'm going to read them all, though. And I finally got to this one, and this one is really good. I liked it as much as I liked the other two. Probably even more than I liked the last one, and I liked the last one a lot. I almost didn't include this in Garbaugust, though, because again, like some other people, I was like, I like Brian Lumley. I like him. I don't want to call him trash. And if I read him during Garbaugust, does that mean I'm telling everybody he's trash? But of course, that's not what we're saying in Garbaugust. And that's not what I'm saying. I don't think this is trash. I just think that a lot of people would take one look at that cover and the type of book this is and say that's trash. But this is a great book, man. It's like the others. It's a science fiction, espionage, vampire horror novel. It's crazy. All of these books have just like everything in them. Zombies, interdimensional travel, people that talk to the dead, vampires. In this one, we've got a whole nother world and a whole nother dimension. It's crazy stuff and very entertaining. It's awesome. I really like this one a lot. Necroscope 3, The Source. Perfect way to close out this month. I'm not going to have any time, I don't think, to read another trashy book within the next couple days. I mean, I might, but probably not the way it's looking for me. So, Garbaugust for me is pretty much done. But there was a lot of trash I didn't get to. And so, Garbaugust for me, the spirit of Garbaugust will continue. Definitely, I didn't get to any of my Planet of the Apes books. I've got a lot of Planet of the Apes books. And so, I'm going to have a big Planet of the Apes-a-thon. Either late this year or early next year, where I'm just going to go through all my Planet of the Apes books and read them all. All my Planet of the Apes books. Because I love the Planet of the Apes. I love that series. And so, you know, I'm surprised at myself that I haven't read these books. And I've got a lot of Planet of the Apes books now. So, going to do that. And I'm definitely going to continue with Jerry Ahern's Survivalist saga. I'm hooked. I have to find out what happens next with the Survivalist. The same goes for some other things. But definitely Survivalist. And of course, I will be reading, you know, other stuff which is considered trash, because I always do, you know, along with everything else I read. So yeah, thanks to CriminOlly and everybody who was involved with this reading event, because it was, like I said, I think this could be the greatest reading event that ever happened on BookTube. It's certainly caused an awful lot of conversation. There have been a lot of opinions about it. It's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to get back to it next year. Okay, guys, I will see you next time.